Yo, welcome to Beatppl podcast. And this is a special episode. This is the frequency shift Beatppl podcast takeover. And it's hosted by Trovarsi. And you are watching this today. This is August 22nd. It's 12 p.m. And we want to welcome you to the show. Just like we want to welcome our guests for this Tech Talk and Frequency Shift episode. We have Kaiser, Christine Higgins, Thea Flowers, and Omi Mitchell. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you, B-Boy Tech, for opening up your channel. I am your host today. My name is Trovarsi from SoCal Synth Society, and today we are going to be having a tech talk with my guests here. I'm going to have them do a little introduction for you, and then we're going to get started on some questions. All right, so let's start off with Kris.
I'm Kris. Hi, thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm Kaiser from Noise Engineering, and my official title is Doer of Many Things.
Nice. And Thea.
Hi, I'm Thea Flowers. I'm from Winterbloom, and I don't have a title. I'm the only person here, so I guess everything is my fault.
Nice. And Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Higgins from 1010 Music, and is my title? Well, my business card says Product Wrangler, but that's that can be interpreted in many ways.
And Omi.
Hi, I'm Naomi, or just Omi. I run Omi Industries. I basically do everything. I don't have an official title. So.
All right. Well, welcome. Thank you, ladies, for opening your time and wanting to share this information. And I know that there are a lot of people in the chat that are already excited and they've been waiting. So before we get into the heavy hitter questions, I must ask all of you, what was the first concert you went to? Okay, we need.
This thing's gonna be good.
Yeah. So we're gonna keep, just so everyone's on the screen, we'll just keep moving. We'll move clockwise. So start off with Kris.
So this is going to date me terribly, but my first concert was the Australian band Ice House and Men Without Hats, and I was completely over the moon for the lead singer of Ice House's mullet.
Amazing. Cool. Mine was when I was 14. My mom took me to see Metallica and Godsmack. Because there's nothing cooler as a 14-year-old than getting your mom to take you to a metal concert.
Your mom is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first one was my parents took me to see the Beach Boys, but the first one I went to because I asked to go to was my dad took us to go see the Cars back in the early 80s.
Nice. Classic.
Yeah. I somehow convinced my dad to take me to a hardcore punk show. It was the Casualties. That was my first.
Nice.
Well done.
How was your dad at the concert?
Stayed at the back of the concert, at the back of the venue the whole time.
With earplugs in and stuff?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for answering that. I really appreciate it. All right. So let's get into it. All right. So my first question for you is, and let's just, for the sake of, time, we'll just keep moving clockwise. Sorry. Yes. All right. So the first question, how did you get into the business of electronic music?
In a word, for me, it was a spreadsheet. I was in a job I didn't like, and I run Noise Engineering with my husband, Steven, who was also in a job that he was ready to leave. We had other plans. I just decided I didn't want to do that job anymore, though. And so we made a spreadsheet and said, hell with it, and went full time with Noise Engineering. and bought a house and moved in and started working together for the first time ever, all in 1 month. So that was good.
Wow.
That is amazing.
That is very crazy. Did you mesh well right away, or just?
The first year was hard, but for reasons we'll talk about when we talk. But it mainly because I didn't know much about my job, and so it was hard, but it worked well, I think. And I don't think there's anybody I'd rather work with.
Nice. Okay. Thea, how about you?
Yeah, so I guess like slowly and accidentally, I still have a day job, so I'm not like, this isn't my full-time thing yet. But I don't know, I was bored. I write software for a living, and I'm like, I want to build something physical. And then I built something, and I was like, people might buy this. And here I am. I have a company now. Please help.
All right. So I started because my husband started 1010 Music, and then I can't remember which came first, that he needed the user manual written or that he needed the e-commerce website implemented. But it was one of those two that I said, all right, I can do that. And I jumped in and did that. And then both of those turned into me helping to test things, because you can't document without using it, and then you find the bugs along the way. And then that turned into me helping to co-design the user interfaces for the firmware.
Very cool.
Yeah, I started out designing things for myself, and I designed my first module, and I started talking to people about it, and there was interest, and so I kind of figured, hey, I should make a couple of these and sell them, and that's kind of how I fell into it.
Nice.
Very cool.
So now moving into, after you all kind of took this plunge and got started into your companies, my next question is, so we recognize that in smaller companies, a lot of people are multitaskers. I know you mentioned that even in your titles. So what are the different types of jobs that you do for your company?
Well, I don't know how to program, so that's probably the easier way to say it is I don't program, and I do everything else. And that's, we're all of us are small companies. We all, at Noise Engineering, I can say that everybody does, if it's within their ability, at some point they pick up the slack and do it.
It's like a team.
Yeah, I mean, like I generally take care of all of the business side of things, which is a big stereotype in this industry, that the women just do the business. But I do that, but I also do the hardware. I do the art if I need to. Typically, we have Marcus do that now, but if I need to do that, I do that. If I need to pick up Slack on social media, I do that. If we need to do testing, I do that. Like, it's whatever task is thrown at me that day is what I do. When you're a small company, if you don't do it, it doesn't get done. So, and I suspect the other ladies here are going to say the exact same thing.
And Thea, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm the only person here, so everything kind of falls on me. I try really hard to focus on the things that I find fun, like, doing the electronics design and the software design and, actually designing the modules themselves. I try to outsource as much as I can, but I'm still dealing with a lot of stuff that I don't find fun. But like, I've outsourced most of the manufacturing, but every module still comes through my hands at some point. And I'm trying to outsource the accounting now, which is super important to me because I really hate doing accounting. So, yeah, it's mostly me.
I'm sure it takes you in a different headspace too. Like,
yeah, I don't like numbers. Like, I know I'm a programmer or engineer or whatever, but I hate numbers. They're not fun.
How about you, Christine?
All right. Well, Aaron manages the business, so that breaks that stereotype for us. He's more the business guy, and he does the primary module design. He's the idea guy, but I like to think of myself as more the person that helps to take the features and turn them into a workflow of how does it work together? What's the user scenario that people need to use to make it a more useful thing? Because it's great to have a feature, but unless you have all the parts that go around it, I help try to focus on that. And then I also do the shipping. I manage the order inputs for the dealers, and then I write the user manuals. I implemented the website. I set up the forum, and I don't know, there's probably a lot more things I'm forgetting, but those are the top few.
So a lot. I mean, what we're gathering here, just to kind of touch base with everybody in the chat, is that, I mean, they're doing everything. So Naomi, you take it away. And
yeah, like I said, I do everything. I design the modules, write them, and then ultimately build them all by hand. So I'm kind of, and then do manuals and social media. My wife helps run the website a little bit and edits manuals after I write them, and helps a little bit with video editing, but mostly it's me.
Yes. So as everyone, Kris, your title, doer of many things. It seems like that's like across the board for everyone on this panel. So my next question then is, what education and experience or training enabled you to do the work that you do? Especially with the fact that all of you said that you basically do a little of everything, if not everything, specifically for your companies.
I have none. Before we did this, I was a biology professor. So I have a lot of degrees, but they're all in biology. But what I typically say to this question is that all of my PhD in science teaches you how to learn things more than it teaches you specific information. And so by the time you finish a PhD, you become a global expert in some ridiculously small piece of knowledge. So I can tell you a whole lot about dog sex that nobody cares about. But that's my expertise, right? So that's why I was mentioning earlier, I alluded to the first year being hard. I was used to being the world expert on some arcane thing about frogs. And then I started this and I literally knew nothing about what I was doing. But I knew how to learn things. And so I guess that's the education that I had that really helped me do this, because I knew that I knew I was smart. I knew that I was talented, and I knew I could. And so, when you're put in a position that you have to learn things, you have to do things, you do it. So that's what I did.
Nice. Love it. Thea, how about you?
I also have none, but also I don't have any degrees at all. I barely graduated high school.
Wow.
I don't know how I'm doing anything, honestly. But yeah, I mean, I have, like I mentioned earlier, I have a background in software engineering. I've actually been doing that for most of my life. So having some experience with software at least helps me write the firmware a little bit easier for my modules. But the hardware design is definitely something that I've been very new to and very much learning on the job over the last 2 years, and has been super hard, but there's been great resources out there. So.
Okay. My background is I was originally a computer and systems engineering major and did control systems work at one point in time, which has absolutely nothing to do again with this. But what I did for many, many years was I went out and did the requirements gathering and the specification writing for e-commerce applications, mostly web applications, for many years. And so from that, I learned how to focus on what does the end user need and what's the full picture that goes with it, and not just the one little feature thing, and got really good at technical writing. And I did some coding in my early career too, so that helped to understand what kind of goes into making the firmware.
Okay. And Naomi?
Yeah, I went to art school, which has definitely helped me with the design aspects. But more than visual art or drawing or anything, what I got out of art school was a critical and creative eye that I can use to examine my own work. More so than, I didn't get any hardware or anything of that training. I mostly taught myself with some help from nice people in the Synth community. But yeah, I also learned, visual art, and I usually design my modules from the faceplate in. So I set out a group of functionality that I think would be useful or important, lay that out on a panel, make sure it looks good, and then kind of double back on that and design from there and make changes as necessary.
Nice. So before we move on to the next question, just kind of go in a little bit more. It's interesting what you just said about the fact of how you design you start from the panel and going in and thinking about your background. Is that a factor of, I guess, how you would approach, sorry, I'm just kind of throwing this guys in it too, but like how you approach thinking about a module or how you tackle a specific task, if that makes any sense. Like how, for example, the faceplate working in faceplate first inward.
For us, so when we design a module, it's usually sort of by committee, for lack of a better term. We design as a group. We decide what we want it to be, and everybody gets to argue about the feature set. We're pretty democratic within the company on that. And then once we have a feature set, we do exactly what Naomi said. And I'm not sure that's really based on background. I think that's based on just trial and error. We've made some we've made a lot of modules at this point, and admittedly, they're not all winners. And I think that we've stumbled into the fact that when we design this way, we just make it better. So just having multiple people having input and like really thinking through and arguing about what's going to make the best product, and like really listening to everybody. Like everybody's on our team for a reason. Like we have all these people they have important insight, so we should listen to them and then really think about and put all of those thoughts into practice when we design. That's how we're going to.
Nice, excellent.
Yeah, I think for me, like, my background doesn't influence where I get my ideas for modules from, because those kind of just come from primordial chaos or whatever. But it definitely influences how I bring them to life, right? Like, I learned how to program because of open source. I learned how to do hardware stuff because people were being, involved and willing to teach and like all of this stuff. So like, the way that I bring my modules to life is always sort of with this eye towards it should be approachable, it should be easy to understand, and it should be easy to customize, right? Like, I dropped something. Anyways, but like, openness is sort of the first principle here. If you can't learn something from what I make, then I feel like I've failed. So, yeah, it's kind of how I approach things because of my background where, I didn't have any formal teaching here. So.
Right. Cool.
So for me, Aaron usually does the hardware design first, and so he's got a rough idea of here's vaguely what we're going to do. It's going to be this kind of a product, and here's the hardware. And in some cases, the hardware already exists, and we're porting new firmware to it because of the touchscreen nature of our products. And then I sit down with him and we say, okay, what are the things we want the user to be able to do with it, and then break that down into what does that look like on the user interface. And we have one advantage with our stuff because of it being a very firmware-driven thing with the touchscreen that we can deliver new firmware and add more features all the time, and we do that all the time. And so if we make a mistake and don't quite get it right the first time, then we have the luxury of being able to put out a new firmware and fix it as long as it's working with the same hardware. So we do a lot of sketching just on paper, just drawing out the design of what we think it's going to look like and drawing it a few different times and then collaborating on it. And you can even see, like, on the wall behind me back there, we end up putting them up on the wall, and that's our designs and kind of what we work from.
Nobody zoom in.
All old stuff we already checked.
Okay. I know I'm sort of doubling back. Naomi, did you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I mean, an early part of the design is the panel, but before that, and more important than that, is this something that I want? Is this something that I want to use? That's the first consideration before feature set, before what it's going to look like, how I'm going to build it. It's, do I want this? I designed one of my upcoming modules while I was doing research for a written piece that I did for perfect circuit on the random, different kinds of ways of doing random, and I was like, oh, I want to do this, and that was kind of how I got kind of informed on my most recent module. So just like, and recently I've started using video components in my designs because I've gotten more into video synthesis.
Very cool. So, okay, I have a question, but I will wait until a little bit later. But so let's move into then the next question that I kind of want to go into is, what are the challenges that you've experienced as women in this industry, in the music industry, creating modules?
There have been many. I would say the number one sort of umbrella issue challenge would just be being just flat out dismissed. I mentioned the stereotype about women just doing business side of things. I've been told that flat out by people that, oh, well, you know that women just do the business. And I'm like, I design the hardware. So no. No, that's actually not true. I've had a lot of people just try to, particularly at trade shows, they'll walk directly past me and try to talk to Marcus, one of our very male-presenting employees. Just ignore me and go straight to Marcus. And I remember at one point at NAMM, somebody came up and asked where the owner of the company was. And the person that was helping with the booth pointed to me, and he looked at me and said, oh, yeah, but it's your husband's company. So, there's a lot of dismissal like that. So I would say that's the biggest frustration that I've had. And I often, this has gotten a lot better, particularly with events like Frequency Shift, but I frequently have struggled to find other women doing things like this, which has been really lonely at times. So it's really fantastic to have an event like this. Thank you so much, SoCal, for doing this.
You're welcome. Like that answer is exactly one of the reasons why we wanted to do this and why we felt it was really important to do it. Thea, how about you?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely echoing everything that was just said, but I'm also relatively new to the electronic music stuff. So a lot of my experience is just being a woman in tech in general, and whew, it's bleak. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with the whole thing of it's hard to find other women doing this, right? For the longest time, Omi was the only person I knew that was building synthesizers. I've since been able to find more, and I'm really glad that I have. But I'm always happy to meet more because there's so few of us. And the other thing is just more broadly in electronics, especially open source hardware, I've noticed that women tend to get taken less seriously in general, right? If you do anything, if you're a woman, it's just assumed that you're either not really doing anything all that technical, or you're just doing education stuff. And if you are deeply technical and you do anything that barely even touches education, you kind of just get written off, and it's really sad. You can see this with how quote serious engineers think about Adafruit. It's oh, that's toys for children. It's not real engineering stuff. It's I don't know. Lemur Freak owns a amazing electronics company, and last I checked, you don't. So, so yeah, I don't know. It's really easy for people to just dismiss us and not take us seriously.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Christine?
So I would say that I'm pretty much isolated here because I work primarily with my husband, and he takes me very seriously, and so that's a good thing. I don't do conferences that much. I do NAMM once in a while, and I can't say I've had too many issues there, but I will say that having worked as an engineer in the past, I did have a boss who struck up a conversation with me about what was wrong with America, is that women weren't staying home and taking care of the children. So what was I supposed to think of my career prospects with him in the future? I mean, the guy ended up leaving and going doing another job, and I kept on doing that job, but we'll see. But that was my worst story for that stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely been dismissed in the past, like doing promotion for my stuff, and people will be like, "Oh, this is boring," or "This is dumb," and there are better things out there. So that's really discouraging. But I mean, things like this, as everyone's kind of said, have been really nice way to kind of connect with other women, because that's definitely something that I have found has been really deeply rewarding. I'm so happy to be a part of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to share an anecdote that Omi just reminded me of when she said that, like, there are better things out there. When I announced my first module, which is a USB MIDI to CD converter, the first comment that I got on it, period, was someone saying, "Oh, noise engineering just announced the same thing but better." And I'm just like, ah! So yeah, it's so easy for us to just not be taken seriously and dismissed.
But yours is out, right?
Yeah, mine's out.
Ours
Yeah.
isn't.
I beat the market.
There's something about that.
Yeah, which, I mean, and just hearing what all of you are saying, you know, I'll just say briefly, when I was 15 and I came out, my grandfather pulled me aside and sat down and said to me, like, being a woman of color, and now being gay, like, you're going to be up against a lot of challenges. So, you know, be strong, be prepared, you know, we're here. And I feel like that advice has stuck with me my entire life. And that's, like, it's important for me to participate and create these platforms for people that are not heard and that should be heard, and that are strong and smart. And so thank you again, yes, for being here. And so with that, I want to ask you, what do you enjoy most about your work? Like, what do you enjoy most about it?
I would say, I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about how we all, as small companies, we wear a lot of different hats. And I find that really fun because it's really hard to get bored with your job when you have to do something slightly different every day. At times it's a little overwhelming because, like, I feel like I'm still not quite a master of anything. You know, several years in, I haven't fully mastered any of the things I really want to know. But it's still really fun to, like, I'm always learning. I never have a day where I don't learn. And that's really fun. That's really rewarding. And then I also get to talk to people in, you know, all over the world, amazing customers that are just a joy to talk to and so much fun and entertaining and, like, really, really cool people. So yeah, just two things. Okay.
Nice. How about you, Thea?
I just love creating something physical. I mean, I've spent most of my career building things that are abstract, and, you know, it's hard to, like, tell your friends, "Oh, I built this thing," when it's like some random database backend on some high scale website. They're like, "Oh, so can you hack my Facebook?" No. But I mean, when I can point at a big button that honks and say, "I built that," they get it, you know? Like, building something physical is wonderful. I also really get a lot of joy from just seeing my modules out in the wild and seeing what people do with them. Because the two that I have out there are, like, you could change the firmware really easily. So people have done some really weird stuff with them, and it's just awesome. I love seeing people sort of take something that I thought of and use it in ways I've never expected. I really, really love that.
That's very cool. How about you, Christine?
Yeah, I love knowing that we've been making things that help people make music, like, especially in the last few months, where I heard from a number of retailers that music industry sales have been pretty high lately. And it's nice to know that in a time when people have some bleak stuff going on around them, that they've got the joy of music that we're able to give them to have something to entertain themselves and be creative while they're at home. And then be able to see on Facebook or see on YouTube some creation that somebody made using your module is just heartwarming. You know, that you're keeping people entertained and giving them a reason to stay home.
And stay inspired and inspired.
Stay inspired, yes.
Yeah, I would say the two things that I like the most are I like routing circuit boards because it's just fun. It's a fun, nerdy problem that I like solving. And then I like seeing my modules out in the world. I like seeing them used. I saw, what was it? It was like the Goldie finals of like drum and bass or like electronic music production. And there was someone with one of my modules in his setup at this like weird live event that they were putting on. That was really cool.
It's very cool.
If I could circle back for a second, Omi said something that made me really say yes, because the tackling nerdy problems is a fun thing. It's being able to use your brain, being able to say, how are we going to make this happen, and not knowing it first, and then being able to come up with a solution. That is a very fun thing that I enjoy.
Nice. All right, then. So with that, then let me just ask you this. Then, what advice would you give to your younger self? So whether it be 5 or 15 years ago or whatever, embarking on these career choices.
I was thinking about this, and my path here was really weird and bizarre, so it's hard to think of much I would want to change because it got me here, even though it was really not very traditional to go from studying frogs in tropical rainforests to making circuit boards. But the only thing I could think of is that I would say learn some damn programming. That's been, I would say, the number one thing that's limited my abilities here, is that I just don't have any real foundation for programming, and I really wish that I did.
And how about you, Thea?
Well, first I want to say I'm always happy to answer questions about programming. If any of you three want to throw them at me, more than happy to do that. I think for me, I would tell myself to start sooner. Like, I didn't know how much joy this would bring me. So I would say start sooner. And also don't underestimate how much work running a business is. It's a lot. Yeah. So yeah.
How about you, Christine?
I think it would probably be to spend more time learning the music side of things and how people really use synthesizers and getting a better, more depth in that sooner than what I did. Because I didn't come from really as a user perspective of being a user of synthesizers. I came from it from more of a firmware and software design perspective. And so getting a little deeper into that, because the more I understand about what an LFO is and stuff like that, for example, the better I can help design products.
And how about you?
I would say, well, I was really intimidated at first by everything, making the prospect of making a module. So I would say, don't be intimidated. Reach out to people that will be helpful, and just dive in and get started working on it earlier, and also do some programming.
So then, so what advice would you have for women or anyone interested in getting into this field then?
Learn as much as you can, and make contact. I mean, we found everybody in this industry. We found almost everybody in this industry is really willing to help each other out, and supportive of each other. And at the end of the day, most companies realize that people are using their products with other products. So I want my products to work well with Winter Bloom products, with Omi products, with 1010 products, with you name it. So like, I want to work with other companies. I want other companies to want to work with us. So, reach out to other companies and say, hey, what can we do together? Get help where you need it, and, figure out what you're not good at and get help with it.
Right. That's good advice.
Yeah, I mean, mine is pretty much the same. Find your community, right? Like, if you're a woman or underrepresented minority getting into this, find people like us. Like, find your people. Like becoming friends with Omi actually helped me stick with this. So, like, if you find your people, you find a support network. You have people you can ask questions of, and people you can work with. And I also like finding the Adafruit community with all of those makers who are doing nonsense stuff but are still like super open and helpful was like super important for me to be able to do this. So find a community is probably the most important thing.
I would say just keep in mind that you don't have to know everything when you start. Nobody knows it all, and so you're gonna have to learn stuff, and you will, and you'd be amazed at the things you have to learn. But yeah, I know more about international shipping requirements than I ever thought I would need to know, for example. But yeah, see, it's not easy. It's hard. But you know what? You dive in and you go to YouTube and you find a website or you ask somebody and you figure it out. And like they said, there's so many people in this industry that have been helpful and open and sharing that. Reach out and get the help you need. Don't be afraid to do it because you don't know one part of it or you don't know all the parts of it. It's okay. You'll learn.
It won't be the things you think you need to learn either.
Yeah, I would say mirroring what everyone else said, just don't be afraid to reach out. There's tons of people who are more than willing to help out. And I feel like it's kind of our duty as people who have accrued this knowledge of synthesis and design and all these other things to pass it on to more people and kind of repay what we have learned from other people.
Nice. And I want to kind of circle back. Well, first of all, with all your answers, but also circle back to another answer when we were talking about women, people dismissing older educators, and the foundation of all of your answers is basically helping people and educating them. And so it's very ironic to think that it's such a dismissive, that it is dismissed, be like, oh, well, they just educate. And that's why we have these synth societies. Colorado Synth Society, Modular Houston, we have up in Seattle. I know there's some in the East Coast. We have Midwest, and now we have SoCal Synth Society, Modular World. And all of these societies are people that want to help people and teach them, in essence, give them some sort of education so they can better whatever it is that they're trying to do. So like, what do you find, what has been the most surprising thing you found about these communities or your modular community or the whole modular community as a whole?
I would say for me, it's generally how supportive people are. Like particularly, for example, if you go to a modular on the spot, one of the things that I find really, really lovely about modular on the spot is that literally anybody can play, and every single person that I've ever seen perform at modular on the spot, whether they've never performed before or whether they're a famous composer, they get the same reception. Their set ends and the entire crowd goes wild. And, it's just this democratization, however you say that word, of the performance space that I think is really neat, that you don't see in a lot of other music communities. And that's true. It doesn't matter who the performer is, male, female, person of color, not. Like, it's been really, I've really appreciated seeing that. And I think just in general, I've found the community to be generally welcoming, although I know you have a question planned for later about the things that you might change about the industry, so we'll talk more about that too. But I would say I found the community generally extremely welcoming on the whole. And that surprised me. Knowing what I know about most of the music industry, and particularly how dismissive people are toward women, just how generally people receive at least live performances at places like Modular on the Spot and others. I've just been really pleased with how receptive people are to a lot of the things that a lot of performances, a lot of performers.
And Thea, how about?
Yeah, I think for me, I've been very surprised at like the DIY ethic that's in the synth community. Like my background in music is with the guitar, and like I remember like the bands that I played with and all this stuff and musicians that we would hang out with, like they never wanted to work on their instruments, right? They just wanted to play, and it's just it's like a spoon to them. But like for synth folks, like they're not afraid to just get in there and figure stuff out and mess around with their instruments. And I was actually really surprised by that. I was shocked, and I got like so many requests for kitted versions of my modules. I'm like, these aren't the easiest things to put together. Are you what is wrong with you? But no, I just love putting stuff together like this. That's how they treat this, and it's really great. I really enjoy the DIY ethic.
Yeah, kind of adding to what Thea said, one thing that surprised me is when, as I've heard it put, the hot rod perspective of it. It's like in my parents' days, it was a lot about you had your car in your garage that you built, and now it's about your synthesizer in your basement that you're building and putting parts together and trying to make it look cool and trying to make it sound cool. And then in some cases, the other thing that surprised me is that it's not just about making music, it's about exploring sound and how can I combine this and that, what kind of sound am I going to get? And it's kind of the pleasantness of the surprise of finding some new sound that you're able to generate by combining different things and that aspect of it. And then lastly, the thing that surprised me most is how technical some of these things are. Like you have to know what an LFO is and an envelope and all this kind of stuff, and how you do what to make music. And it just kind of surprised me that how technical it is. But it's impressive.
Yeah, I would say the thing that surprised me, and it took a little bit of time to realize and kind of figure out, because the dominant people out there are cis, white, straight men, but it's a very diverse community overall. Like there's people from all over, and you just have to figure out how to find other people, but they're definitely out there, and that's really nice to know. I know when a lot of people, when they first get into it, they just see that user group, which is not always the most welcoming or inviting, but there are many of us that are out there, and it's just important to find your communities.
I for one love that you can satisfy the creative artistic side, but also that like technical, like get your hands dirty, like get in there and break things. And then I asked something like Justin, for example, to fix it in SoCal Synth Society. No, but just the whole aspect of being able to get technical and dig in, and then also then be creative with something that you can even build yourself. So I like that too. What if you could change then one thing about the industry you work in, what would it be?
I would say the number one thing, well, I think it's getting better.
I want to ask first, my apologies. I want to ask this question first. And have you seen a change in the industry during your journey? Let's start there, and then we'll go to that.
I would say that I have, and we still have a long way to go. The first year that I did NAMM was before I actually was working with noise engineering. I was still at that point. And so I should back up and say that we used to be next to the guitars at NAMM. And when they moved us, they rearranged the floor and they moved us away from the guitars. And that just miraculously coincided with things getting better at NAMM. And I don't know if it's correlation or causation. I'm not speculating on which one it was. But the year that we were no longer next to the guitars, at that point, things got a lot better at NAMM. But like there was one year where I kept saying to Steven that it was so bad, and he had never had the harassment at NAMM. He had no reference point. He didn't understand how bad it was. And he was like, "Oh, yeah, no, they just people are jerks at NAMM." I'm like, no. You don't understand how bad this is. So I started telling him every time somebody said a sexist comment. And by the end of the first day, he was just like, holy shit, and he started to get it. And now, this past year at NAMM, I still get ignored a lot, and people still ignore me and walk up to any of the guys in the booths. So I call them my booth babes. So, they ignore me for the booth babes. But I have had almost no sexist comments at NAMM in the last NAMM. So I'm using that as my bar. I would say there's still a lot of room to go, but for using that as a bar, I would say that we've made some progress.
It's like a good gauge. How about you, Thea?
I don't know if I've been at this long enough to really say, right? Like, I'm still just kind of getting my bearing on like the status quo here, right? Like, I don't know. I'm on the lookout. I know that this is kind of an ever-changing sea of stuff here, but for me, it's just I'm still wrapping my head around it. I'm still learning who the distributors are, like, yeah. So, and which trade shows I should probably go to. Like, I knew about NAMM, but there's actually more. There's actually more that I should probably go to if I want to, sell more stuff. So, yeah. So I don't know. That's my answer. Too young, too small to know.
So I'll give an anecdote compared to before I even entered the modular industry myself. Back in the early 90s, I had an opportunity to go to Audio Engineering Society conference in New York City. And while I was there, they were debuting the Sony CD Walkman. And as part of their booth, they had two women scantily clad jumping on a trampoline to show how it didn't skip. And I'm happy to say I haven't seen anything like that at NAMM in recent years, but I've been. Kris is looking like she has.
You can still order a booth babe from the NAMM catalog, though. Like, they have like the things that you can still get booth babe.
Okay, so yeah. Well, at least they're not scantily clad and jumping around trampolines. I hope. I did try to walk around, but I didn't see it. But anyway, so there is some advancement, at least in that perspective. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say there's, over the last couple of years, there's definitely been more women who have entered the scene, and kind of there's a broad range of people who are involved with it. So I'd say, yeah, there's been some changes. It's been for the better, I think, for the most part. It's grown. I mean, the user base is growing every year, and with that is kind of changes, good and bad, but hopefully good. We're on a good trajectory overall.
Mm-hmm. I think awareness, is the key.
Yeah.
Everyone using their voice. So then, if you could change one thing about the industry you work in, what would it be?
I would really like it if I'll preface this by saying this event is amazing, but I would like it if this event weren't necessary. If diversity of all forms were just an expectation and didn't need to be called out, so that it was obvious that women did shit like this, that there were people of color doing a ton of things, that people were obvious and easy to find, and we didn't have to search it and highlight it. That's what I would change.
I would agree.
I mean, yeah, I echo that for sure. I think, since I have to pick something else now, thanks. I would love to see more openness. Like, I know that not every company can do this, but when I started this, I set out some clear goals for myself that I wanted to publish the schematics, the board files, the source code, everything from my modules, so that people can learn. And I know that there's drawbacks to that, and we've all seen how many clones there are of Mutable's modules, but for every clone, there's also people who have learned how to do this stuff from what Mutable has done and what others who have taken similar paths as her have done. And I would love to see more of that. There's a lot of modules out there, and I'm like, I have no idea how this could even begin to work. And yeah, I would love to see more people be open about how they design things and how it works.
I would love to see more opportunity between the different module manufacturers to just get together and talk and exchange ideas, because I think we are part of an ecosystem that doesn't necessarily compete with each other, but I think by each making better modules, we make the racks better, and so we can, I don't think there's so many issues with collaborating, because we do compete in some way, but we also work together and mesh together and create a whole, and so the more we can try to work together and make a whole, I think would be better.
Yeah, I wish there was, more opportunities for education. I'm a designer, but I'm also an educator. I've done a number of workshops in the past, and I wish that was more of a thing. We have Synth Lab here in LA, and that's great, but they only have so many resources, and I wish there was more kind of widespread education and access. They've started the lending library, but that's kind of limited. It's just starting out, and yeah, I wish there were more access. I wish, there's less of a barrier to entry, and, more access, I guess.
I think by, this is just one example, like bringing all of you together and even putting those ideas and wants for the change that can initially start the initiation and get things moving. Maybe you all can have a conversation, and maybe there are some ways to talk about standards within what Christine had mentioned. And so Synth Society loves to do workshops, and I know that other societies as well. And I'm sure that as they're listening, it'd be great to reach out to some of you or all of you, to participate maybe in a workshop, so we can share some knowledge to strengthen the modular community. So I thought I had another question. 1 second. So we're almost at the top of the hour, and I want to ask you if you all have anything that you want to talk about, like any upcoming event or anything that you have that you want to share, or just kind of open the floor for just like a free form statement.
I've gotten to go first on everything, so I'll pass and let somebody else go first.
Okay.
All right, I'll go first. We'll go reverse.
Okay, yes, counterclockwise.
Yeah.
Like it.
My name's Omi Industries. It's spelled weird, so check the spelling when you search it. I have a module that just came out recently, the R2 RAR, and I have another upcoming modules that'll be coming out over the probably fall area range. I would kind of less related, but I just have been finishing up a workshop I've been doing with Ableton, which is an intro to modular using VCV Rack. So they'll probably be announcing those through the Ableton user group. So if people are connected with their Ableton user community, they can get an intro to modular using VCV Rack.
Nice. Will you have that information on your website at all, or kind of
social media? Yeah, I'll probably link it when it goes live. I have to talk more with Ableton and get a sense of what they're doing.
Okay. We did, just to remind people in the chat, that we did drop the links, their websites to the companies. And I just want to check in also with the chat while we are opening the floor to see if you have any questions out there that you would like to ask them. You want to take this opportunity, please drop them in. We do have a few minutes. And while you guys are thinking about that out there, let's continue counterclockwise. Christine.
So we have 10/10 Day coming up. So we're going to do something on October 10th. It's an event we're collaborating with Trovarsi on. There's going to be some giveaways. There's going to be opportunities for women to share their music, and maybe some announcements depending on how some things go. We'll see. And yeah, so 10/10 Day. Look for stuff on October 10th from us.
Very cool. Again, the link, I believe B-Boy Tech Report dropped those links in there for you. And Thea, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to be launching my third module soon, which is, I can show you the panel, but I can't show you anything else.
Very cool. Oh, wait.
It's
Let me zoom you in here.
It's called Castor and Pollux. It is
Very cool.
It is a dual oscillator that is based on the oscillators that are in the Roland Juno. So it is a very interesting and fun module that has one secret feature that I'm not telling anybody about right now. But look forward to that in the next couple of months. And I generally, when I launch a new module, I'll give one away. So keep an eye on my social media for that. And yeah, I think it's going to be super fun. I'm excited to run this through some chorus and get some sweet 80s sounds. So.
Nice. We'll also drop your Instagram links in the chat too, just so that everybody know all the companies do have Instagram as well as their websites. Kris.
Let's see, what do we have? We haven't made any decisions about what we're actually going to release for the rest of this year. We have a bunch of things that we are thinking about releasing, but I think we're going to release the Fractio Solum, which we announced at NAMM 2019, and now we're finally getting around to it, which is a clock divider. It spits out like weird ratios, so you can have divisors like 7/8 or weird time. It's going to be a weird little niche thing, but it'll be 4HP, and it'll be cheap, and it'll be a fun little nerdy module. And then we're working on, we haven't decided which one it's going to be yet, but we have 23 alt firmwares in the pipeline for the reverb that we just released. So we are working on one of those that will be probably November, possibly December, probably November.
Wait, I think you might have gotten muted, Kris. 1 second. Oh, there you go.
So yeah, that's pretty much all we've got for this year. Well, there may be more, but those are our big things.
Very cool. So there is a question in the chat. We popped it up there on the screen. So what favorite module that's not your own? Thea, let's start with you.
Oh, come on. I really like Forbidden Planet, which is a filter based on the Steiner filter, which is kind of similar to the one that's in the microbrute. I love the way that filter sounds. It's awesome. My favorite filter module by far. So.
How about you, Naomi?
Probably a three-way tie. The modules that I use the most, besides my own, would probably be maths, the QCD from 4MS, and the BIA from Noise Engineering. That ends up in pretty much all of my patches.
How about you, Christine?
Uh-oh. Here's where I have to admit that I'm not really a big, heavy modular user myself, so I don't have one.
It's all good. Anything that you've kind of kept your eye on, maybe, or even if you're not you, it's fine.
Sorry.
No. What about you, Kris?
My case is upstairs, so I'm trying to think of what's in there that never leaves that isn't ours. I like the circadian rhythm, and that tends to be in there always because it's just really intuitive sequencing. That's probably the number one thing that I use, and then I change my case like constantly, so I don't have. And I sort of intentionally change it so that everything is different pretty regularly. So I don't really tend to keep things. I like to challenge myself to like just have a completely blank slate every time I change my case and mess around with it. I don't always get good results with it.
I think there might have been a slight delay on my end, so please apologize if I think it might be an internet lag. But so I do want to make some announcements. I know that we have Frequency Shift this afternoon on SoCal Synth Society's YouTube page. And we will continue with next weekend on Modular Houston and on Noise Blast for noise engineering. And Naomi, I believe you have a performance later on this evening, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's a live stream for Coaxial Arts Foundation. They're a venue here in Los Angeles who've been really great.
Very nice. All right. Well, I do want to say thank you again so much for all of you participating and coming on and sharing your world with everyone. I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
To do this.
Thank you. And I do want to say thank you to B-Boy Tech for opening up your platform.
Yeah,
Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you to all of the viewers for hanging out with us. Please pop over to the SoCal Synth Society page. Again, that starts at 2, so it's 2 to 4. We have performances, and we'll have interviews with the artists as well. So, yes. Thank you. Have a good Saturday. Peace.